It's Wellness Wednesdays. It's Wellness Wednesdays. And okay, I'm doing a slightly different approach on this one. And it's not deviating from the format. It's this is a source of frustration and upset for a lot of people that I'm seeing recently. And it's something that's easily preventable. So I thought I'd do a video on it. The difference between listening to understand and speaking to be understood. It is a tick. I almost put this in Manly Monday because the vast majority of people who do this tend to be men. I have no idea why, and I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, well, just because it leans men doesn't mean it's inherently male. Some women do it too, so let's put it in Wellness Wednesday. But it is sort of, I think it is tied to feeling like you have to speak in a declarative, aggressive speaking style to cover up insecurity, and it's not getting people where they want to go. So real simple, but it's a mistake a lot of people make. So take note. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/Leanna K. Patreon and Coffee help a lot with this stuff. And I'm doing all my my movie and series reviews and things like that on Patreon right now because the YouTube algorithm hates those things. So if you want my opinions on stuff like that, become a patron. But okay, so people have this tick where they say, I'm just trying to understand. And then the next time they open their mouth, they're explaining their position. And this gets them a bad reaction. And they don't seem to understand why. And it's really simple logically, but there's some sort of bad code or emotional thing that people don't seem to be connecting what they're saying to what they're doing. And it leads to, I mean, this can cause this is a verbal tick that can end friendships. I've seen it happen. Because somebody is clearly pissed off. And someone says the right thing, which is, I'm just trying to understand why you're upset. Now, the minute you say, I'm just trying to understand, you have to follow up on that consistently and actually just try to understand from that point forward. Because if you do anything but try to understand, after you say, I'm just trying to understand, you risk coming across as dishonest and manipulative. Makes sense in theory, right? But people in practice do this all the time. They say, I'm just trying to understand. And so the other person explains what's going on with them from their point of view. And instead of going into listening to understand mode, I'm just trying to understand why you're so upset. Well, I got upset when, you said that thing. It came across like you were insulting me. Let me explain what I was actually doing. No, wrong, no. Best of intentions, right? But no, wrong. Explaining is not understanding. Listening to understand and speaking to be understood are polar opposite portions of communication. And if you say you're going to do one and you do the other, you risk people thinking you're a selfish asshole. And it's not intentional. It's bad code. Because when a person is upset, they feel temporarily reassured by the person that upset them wanting to understand. So they come out of defense mode. Okay, they just want to understand. They're not trying to hurt me. They're trying to understand right now. And so the person becomes vulnerable when they explain. Anything but, okay, if I'm understanding you correctly, paraphrase, did I get that right, is going to make the person feel like they were misled. Because they were misled. Not intentionally, but they were. You said you just wanted to understand, and now you're explaining again. And like I said, this seems like such a small thing. But these sorts of untimely explanations have led to the destruction of more online friendships and real life friendships. You wouldn't believe it. Because people eventually get sick of people who can't stop explaining. Some people panic in conversations and they think they have to explain what they were really doing so people don't get the wrong idea and they don't think they were this and they don't think they were that. And it's the best of intentions. It seems very logical, but when someone's upset at you, the dumbest thing you can do is talk more. No, I'm serious. Hear me out. A person who is upset wants to be heard. They're not capable of listening completely rationally. So if you want the best possible result, if the friendship is more important to you than the fight, okay, time to go into listening mode. Now, if somebody's accusing you of shit, okay, that's different. You're both upset. But that's the important thing to keep in mind. You're both upset. And when two people are upset, at some point, somebody's going to have to be the bigger person. Somebody's going to have to be the bigger grown-up, or the fight's just going to go along forever. So it might as well be you. At least that's my thought. When I find myself in this situation where, you know, it's somebody close to me and it's just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it's like, is the friendship more important than the fight? Yeah, okay, I'm going to be the bigger person, right? It's worth it. It's worth it. Yes, it's a setting aside of the ego. Yes, it's short term. It is tiring and draining. But it's better. It's much better for relationships to just shut up, stop talking, and make sure you understand what you're being told so you know what to respond to. And that's why the phrase, I'm just trying to understand, is very powerful, but it can backfire if you don't actually follow through. Because listen to what you're saying. I'm just trying to understand. The only thing I'm doing right now is trying to understand. Well, in order to be consistent, you've committed to listening mode there, right? Like, it seems so obvious. But people mess this up all the time. Now, what does it mean that you're just trying to understand? You've said something that's upset someone. You don't intend to. The big one that I see friendships and like all this fucking gender stuff. But the joke, did you just assume my gender, is a big one that people make the joke meaning no harm, and then somebody gets really upset. And there's no right or wrong to this one. It's just a miscommunication. It's the difference between intent and what someone's hearing. Because the person making the joke usually doesn't intend to mock, trans or non-binary people. They're mocking the people that overused that tactic, or the people that use that tactic dishonestly. I had somebody do that to me last week. They were clearly a guy, or clearly at least performing male on a Twitter account. But the minute people were like, okay, like, you know, calm your thirst, buddy. Like, settle down. I'm not just a piece of meat. Did you just assume my gender? Fuck off, man. Like, you followed me for my boobs. Give me a break. Okay, it could be a lesbian, but usually it's different, right? People are frustrated by that. People are sick of that. And so some people cope by joking. But, I get why nerves are raw right now regarding any, trans people, non-binary people. And that matters. Intent matters. But if you want somebody to continue to be your friend, you have to give a shit how comments land. And so something like that happens where you meant no harm and somebody gets really upset. And please don't feel called out, anybody. I'm just picking this because it's a very common example. It may never make sense to you why somebody gets so upset over something like that. And that's okay. What's important is to understand that it did upset them if you want them to continue to be your friend. And this is a dumb thing to lose a friend over, just saying. It is one of the hardest things we do as humans is putting ourselves in the frame of mind of a person with a different experience than ours, a different frame on the world than ours. It's the Kate Bush song, right? If I could make a deal with God, I would get him to swap our places. That's what it's about, right? Like getting in somebody else's head. That song is about wishing she could swap minds with a guy for better understanding. We can't do that. All we have is communication. And that's why I'm just trying to understand is an important phrase. If you actually do take time to try to understand the other person's point of view without needing to talk yourself, that solves the problem. Because that person really upset at you doesn't want to believe the thing that set them off, that that you secretly hate them. That's what it really comes down to when there's a reaction like this. Somebody is now afraid that you secretly hate them for something they can't control. It's not totally rational, but it's very real. And that's why the I'm just trying to understand is so important. And that's why you have to do it right. Because obviously the person wants you to stop doing the thing going forward that you did. Reasonable, right? You need to understand what you did so that can happen. And that doesn't mean what you did was morally wrong. It just means what you did upset someone. And it actually is very important to understand precisely what it was and hopefully why it upset them, so you don't do it again, because you only have so many chances on these things that are gut punches for people, right? And when you pull the I just want to understand and the person tries to explain it to you and then you go back to explaining yourself, that is a secondary gut punch. Because it's you were unintentionally misleading. You weren't just trying to understand. You were trying to be understood. And the simplest thing, it's not easy, but it's simple. The simplest thing you can do to improve communication and improve your relationships, and if you're afraid somebody's going to ghost you or stop speaking to you, this is the single simplest thing you can do to minimize the chances of that happening. Stop explaining yourself. Start listening to the other person's explanation about why what you said upset them. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean they hate you. It doesn't. You see, they think you secretly hate them. You're afraid they hate you. It's a whole bunch of freaking out. Somebody's got to be the bigger person. It might as well be you. So as soon as "I'm just trying to understand" comes out of your mouth, you have one job. Understanding. And if you're listening to understand, you're not speaking to be understood. You are laser focused on understanding the other person. And that means you do not proceed. You do not add any additional your side until you are sure and the other person confirms that you understand what they're telling you. So for instance, going back to our example of did you assume my gender bother you? Well, it's something people use to, mock trans and non-binary people. You're gonna feel the urge to go, but that's not what I was doing. Don't do it. If you do it and you catch yourself, okay, but that's not what I was doing. But I understand that's how it came across to you. Like, you can recover. Like, okay, you were upset because you thought I was mocking you. You felt mocked, or it reminded you of a time where you were mocked. It's usually that. Yes, it reminded me of a time when I was mocked. I don't think you meant anything by it, but it did bring back some bad memories. This is the point where you go, okay, I had no idea. I'm really sorry. That is not what I wanted. I won't say it anymore going forward. And after you say that, and the other person seems to accept it, because you have explained yourself through understanding there. You see, I didn't mean to. That's explaining yourself. That's all you need. Do not say, here's why I said it. It doesn't matter. If you're burning to be understood, ask, do you want to know why I actually did say it? And the person might begrudgingly be, stealing themselves, because the last thing they want is to give the sense that it is okay if you do it again, because it won't be. But if they say yes, okay, explain yourself. And then I understand that's not how it's coming across. I was just making fun of the people that do it disingenuously, not the people who actually do get misgendered. I understand that, deliberate misgendering is mean and it's cruel and it's torturing someone, right? You can be heard. You can be heard. You actually increase your chances of being given the chance. You are actually truly speaking to be understood in that model, instead of skipping steps and rushing to the end and needing to talk so badly that you're actually not following through on your opening statement, which is, I'm just trying to understand. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully that helps people understand why those communications break down. It will feel strange at first. It takes some practice, but trust me, this makes a huge difference. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching and be well.